Yes, good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. Late start tonight, multiple tasks, um, marathon meeting today, and it went over time, cut into overtime. Parliamentary work, and although Parliament is not in session, we, the APNU parliamentarians, are in session and we try to meet every week. And tonight's meeting, today's meeting, marathon meeting, as I said, is scheduled to finish in time for Politics 101 to start. Unfortunately, it didn't. So rather than go the night without a show, I've decided that we are going to at least make an appearance. Brother Sherrod is going to be on time. And so I have his permission to overlap with him tonight. I do overlap with some of his program, but tonight we were both at the meeting, but the meeting finished in time for him to have a prompt start and for us to have a late start. But I'm grateful that some of you are here, and we are going to have a program. Welcome to all of you, whether you're joining us from in Guyana or outside of Guyana. Welcome. It's exciting times. The start of the new year. It's not a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year kind of start. It is the kind of start that is electrifying politically. Of course, leading us off the night is the mighty Choppers, Dr. Hollis Liverpool. I put up my guns again. And in that calypso, of course, Chuck Dust is saying that, look, I intended to retire and go and study history and leave the people's stage. But then, when the poor apple vendors in the rain, I put up my guns again. The things in the society made him change his mind. And I thought it was apt. I wanted some Chalk Dust tonight. I dedicated to my friend out of Toronto, Colin Burke, Colin Garnett to some, Colin Burke. And that's one of his favorites. I put up my guns again, or I put on my guns again. Making the statement that sometimes you want to go away. Sometimes you want to go into retirement. But then things happen that bring you back into the arena. People like myself, we've been doing this since we were in short pants. It's 50 years doing this politics thing. And sometimes you want to just fade away and relax and leave the people's stage. But then the Americans went and arrested and took away Mr. Maduro. And that means that Guyana is now brought into the firing line. So I said, I can't go away. I have to come back. I put up my guns again. Intellectual guns, political guns, academic guns, use all we have in our fight to ensure that our country, our people, our civilization continues to survive. Guyana is one of the most interesting countries in the world. It's a unique country. One can argue that all countries are unique, but Guyana has a particular kind of uniqueness about it. Like many countries in Africa and Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, Guyana is a post-plantation society. meaning it is a society that was a slave society. And after centuries of slavery, it moved into a period of further colonialism. And so for most of our history in Guyana, our people have been in bondage. Our people have been oppressed for most of our history. And that makes our countries unique. That is why the Caribbean is unique. That is why Latin America is unique. That is why Asia, Africa is unique. But the Caribbean, especially for most of our history, as what we can call the Caribbean, it's been a history of bondage, to quote Professor Rex Nettleford. And if most of your history has been in bondage, most of your history, you are fighting to escape bondage. You're fighting to overcome bondage. And so this imposition of bondage and this struggle to escape bondage creates a particular kind of society. And it is out of that ferment, out of that tension between bondage and anti-bondage, out of that comes the Caribbean character, the Caribbean personality, of which Guyana is part. So when we speak about the Caribbean civilization, of which Guyana is part, we are talking about a particular experience, not just the experience of bondage, but the experience of fighting, and in some respects, defeating bondage. So when our artists, when our athletes, when our academics, when our workers in field and factory engage in production, engage in selling their labor, they're doing so from a particular perspective, which is unique. And I think sometimes, understandably so, we in Guyana think that we do not matter as a society. We do matter because we bring something unique. We're not just a post-plantation society, but we are a society where different groups, some brought against their will as the Africans, some who were here as the indigenous people, and some who came after the bondage of slavery. And that mix of voluntary migration and forced migration, that mix has created a particular dynamic. So quite apart from being a post-plantation society, we are a society in which different ethnic groups, strangers sometimes, thrown together. The Africans came here. The Europeans were not altogether strangers. They had been engaging the Europeans for a couple of centuries. But indigenous people were in some regard strangers. Strangers meeting involuntarily. And then after slavery was buried as a legal system, as a formal system, other strangers came. And so in many regards, Guyana is a land of strangers who are landed in this place, and strangers who had to contend initially with a common adversary, the plantation, and what the plantation represents. And so these strangers, suspicious of each other, but nevertheless having to survive in a land far away from home, another uniqueness of Guyana. And so Guyana has been blessed with ethnic diversity. But with ethnic diversity comes ethnic competition. And so diversity and competition, that collision, has created a particular dynamic in Guyana. We are a particular kind of country. We are a unique country. Every country is unique. There are similarities between Guyana and other parts of the world. Similarities between Guyana and the rest of the English-speaking Caribbean. But there are also divergence. Guyana is a unique polity. Geographically, Guyana is located at the tip of North America. To the north of us, the United States and Canada, large countries, big countries, hegemons. Not far from us, the Brazilians, large country that has become a big and influential country in the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela, the largest deposit of oil anywhere in the world, our neighbor. We are sitting squarely there in the middle. So geographically, we are a unique space. It means, therefore, that uniqueness means that we are always having to think about the world, not just about ourselves. We make the cardinal sin, commit the cardinal sin of sometimes thinking too much about ourselves and not thinking enough about the world around us. And that often what we do and how we do it are influenced by the world around us. The uniqueness of Guyana. And I'm going here tonight because I think one of the weaknesses of politics is the way in which we diminish its importance. You know, we go out and we vote and we say, and story done. The Americans arrest Maduro, story done. We had an election, Win and Mohammed came from nowhere and they win 19 seats. And we seek to explain those things in their narrow locality. And that's perhaps a good place to start. But we have to understand it in its larger context. We have still not figured out. What is the meaning of the win phenomenon at the 2025 election? I've heard many explanations. As an academic, I have to say that many of them are simplistic. They're not wrong, but they're simplistic. Because they do not take into account what is Guyana. So many of our people visit and they see big houses all over the place, new things, North American fast food stores. And we say, boy, Guyana, nice, Guyana developing, nice place. They have a good time for 14 days. And they go back to North America. Without recognizing that beneath that shininess that they see is 58% poverty. that 58% of the people in Guyana are living on $5.50 US dollars per day. $5.50 US is perhaps a beer. Some of us drink 10 beers. Not recognizing what lies beneath the surface. In many regards, we don't understand our own country. And that is why part of the task of a political activist is always to teach. Because we have to understand our country. And if we understand our country, then we understand its politics and its sociology. And we are better placed to understand behavioral shifts. Guyana is a unique place. All countries are unique, but Guyana is a unique place. And we have to try to understand. Some people say, I was reading today, I noticed Azzuddin Mohammed is now talking about PPP ministers engaged in possible corruption. And some people are saying, the APNU never did that. They never exposed the corruption. And Azzuddin is doing it. The answer is simple. Azzuddin knows where the dead bodies are. He knows where the graves are. Whether they're shallow graves or deep graves, he knows. That's his role. He's better placed than David Hines to know where the dead bodies of corruption are in this country. More power to him. That's his role. My role is to explain to you what the impact of corruption is on the politics and economics, sociology of this country. What impact corruption has on ethnic disparity in our country. I don't know where the dead bodies are. I don't know where the graves are. Azzuddin knows that. And let him point them out to us. Recovering from the flu. But then we have to understand the danger of corruption. Not just pointing it out. How corruption leads to a degenerate state. How corruption leads to a degenerate state. This is not corruption at the individual level. Individuals are involved in corruption, yes. But this is a way in which corruption has penetrated the state. And it is good that someone who is alleged to have benefited and perhaps participated, alleged, in state corruption, that he is now pointing out the avenues, the graves. If Azzuddin has not done a good turn to his country, that is the best turn he's doing now. Finding the graves and telling us where they are. So that we can now explain to the Guyanese people in a way that Azzuddin perhaps is not interested in and perhaps not capable of doing, how that corruption has caused so many problems in our country. That corruption has created a small elite of Guyanese. Most of them knowingly, some of them unknowingly, but created this small group of mega rich Guyanese. And when you are poor, you don't want to stay poor, you want to become rich. And you see rich people, and you want them to be your role models because you want to get rich like them. And you don't always question the origins of their wealth. You don't always question the origins of their wealth. And we are living in a Guyana where it is becoming evident by the day that corruption, where the state is in collusion with individuals, has led to this new elite that are the role models of our people. It is argued that in many ways, some of our people voted for this notion of richness and wealth. It's a dangerous development because it means that our people no longer are judging politics based on morality, but they're judging politics based on how scampish you can be. Because the state has not guaranteed them a proper life. And they see other people getting a proper life by allegedly scamping the system. So they say, let me go vote for that. Perhaps that man or woman will get into power and will create a regime of scampishness so that I can get wealthy. It's a very dangerous development in our country. Corruption leads to the normalization of corruption. So many people ask me, Dr. Hines, look how you black people, look how they're jumping up on the road behind a man who thief money from them. Allegedly. What? And I say to them, but that man has come to represent the new norm. Poor Jack Dio. He costs people like me. David Hines don't want black people to get rich. David Hines don't want black people to get rich. And so the PPP government over time has created this notion among Guyanese people that progress means getting rich by any means necessary. Including being a scamp. And so when people take that into the ballot boxes, Jagdio is now saying that APNU did not fight back. But Mr. Jagdio, you are the one that created that regime of slackness, that regime of getting rich by skullduggery. So many people say, Dr. Hines, you have work to do among your young black people. Because they've come to believe that all you need is a $3 million contract to build a concrete road. And then take your money and buy a car and a gun. And you're all right. I don't know that to be true for many young black people, but maybe for some. But perception becomes reality. And that kind of gangsterism, where you're saying to young people The height of success is getting a $3 million contract. Take the little money, buy a car or a motorbike and maybe a gun, and you have made it. It is the PPP led by Jack Dew that has created that notion of success. I heard some of them. Ravi Dev said David Hines always talk that he been to school. And he's saying that young black people are not interested in going to school. There's an Indian man who is proud to be an Indian, who is saying that what he has observed is that young black people don't care about school. They have no place for people like David Hines who say Yanti send it to school. What they want is quick money. These are people who have worked on the weaknesses of our young people, the structural weaknesses. And they've now created a monster. And they're rationalizing it. And they see people like David Hines as an enemy of that. I want black people to get rich. I want young black people to be successful in a legitimate way. In a legitimate way. And so there is a way in which we have normalized the abnormal. Sisters and brothers, our country is in a bad way. Bad way. I've had the privilege of traveling to a few countries in the world. The worst driving I've seen is what is in Guyana now. It's not that the Guyanese can't drive. It is not that Guyanese want to kill themselves. But the abnormal has become the normal. Last night I was in Providence at the wake for a family friend who had crossed the road there in front of the hotel there. Crossed the road in the corner. And a speeding car swerved in the corner and knocked her down dead. He was traveling so fast that she was on the bonnet for minutes and he didn't stop. Speeding. And why you're speeding? Because you could do it and get away with it. The value of life is gone. That's where the PPP has taken Guyana. That's where they've taken this country. Progress, but what is the price of progress? That young sister is now gone, leaving 4 children behind. He's going to be buried tomorrow. 4 children behind because of a madman with a car and some money, and who feels that he does not have to obey the rules of the road. And the lives that are taken are mostly poor people lives. No rich lady is going to be crossing the road at night. Rich lady will be in a car or a bigger car than the man car. Got no calling on the road. Is poor people going home from work. And they become the victims of the madness in our country. Progress. What is the price of progress? The loss of lives of ordinary people. 8-month-old child, now motherless. 3 others motherless. Because the people has no mother. to scold her and to tell her, you are creating a monster for a country. Rest in peace, Sister Leslyn. But can you rest in peace, knowing that your work on this earth was not done? God was not ready for you? But a madman, a product of a mad country, being led by a mad government, snuffed out her life. So the point I'm making, when we are analyzing politics, you don't only analyze politics by politics or through politics. What is the impact of the politics on the society? How people die, how people live. It tells you a lot about the politics of a country. And so many times, I hear from people a simplistic explanation of things in our country. And they say, David Heinzman, the people vote for you all because you're all intellectual. You are not coming down to the people level. And so they want our people to think that they're living in paradise when they're living in hell. Shadow said poverty is hell. And so when we do not allow them to sell you that stale bread, that there is progress in Guyana, how can there be progress when women are dying every day unnecessarily, leaving their children behind? Who will take care of those children? Most cases, it's grandmothers, auntie and uncle, sometimes fathers. When the IMF and the World Bank come and they do their statistics, they will miss that. That is the country we are living in. What is progress? What is progress? Guyana is not progressing. Guyana is changing. For some people in the society, it's heaven on earth. They never had so much money in their lives. The money come easy. The APNU people call it friends, family, and favorites. And they dangle that to vulnerable poor people and to say, you could get this, knowing fully well that those people are not going to get that. But they want to draw them into a web of silence, a web of complicity in their own degradation. There is a lot of work to be done in our country. The narrative of what our country is. We do not understand our own country. Many of us who call ourselves political people. You don't understand my own history? And if you don't understand the history, we can't understand the present. We don't understand the world in which we live. And if you don't understand the world in which you live, you can't understand your country's place in that world. What is the destiny of a country like Guyana? What is the destiny of a country like Guyana? Can somebody tell us? Oh no, they reduce politics to votes and all that kind of stuff. And politics are also about those things, but not just about those things. It's a hard road to travel and a long, long way to go, say Brother Jimmy Cliff. And we have to decide as Guyanese, are we going to live as a civilization, as part of a civilization, or are we going to live in the economic and political jungle? In the song Concrete Jungle, Bob Marley asked, where is my love to be found? Where's my sweet caress? Can somebody tell me? I've never known no happiness. I've never known no sweet caress. I live in a concrete jungle where life is hard. The concrete jungle of Guyana. The facade of development. The poisoning of the minds of the youth. Taking advantage of their vulnerability. People laughing, kya, 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 kya. As young people are herded into spaces of uncivility. The mayhem, the carnage on our roadways tell a larger story, a story of a people who have been entrapped by their own government to believe that life doesn't matter. Life doesn't matter. We bury our dead every day. Accident here, accident there. Speeding is not isolated. This is the normalization of the abnormal. And we call it progress. We call it progress. It starts with corruption. When the government does favors for its friends, family, and favorite, the fans, family, and favorite do favors to the government. And wash hand, make hand come clean. But dirty hand, washing dirty hand don't make it come clean. Because it's dirty washing dirty. And so there is a relationship that is developed between the state and those who benefit. From the state in ways that they should not benefit. A net worth of deceit. And out of that corruption comes a disregard for the rule of law. Law doesn't matter. Law only matters for some people. It doesn't matter for you if you're rich. And we create this false sense of what happens in our lives. So I'm glad that Mohammed is pointing out to us where the graves of corruption are. He must know. I'm God. That's not my job. I do not know where the graves are. I have not been complicit with the architects of official corruption. Sometimes it takes someone who knows to tell us what is in a concrete way. Hooray to the brother. Corruption consumes even the innocent. Here we are as a nation in 2026, sitting on the doorstep of the theater of global warfare. But make no mistakes. Make no mistake. What is happening to Maduro in Venezuela is not about our interests as Guyana. It's about the U.S. interests. The U.S. is pursuing its own interests. As countries with power do. When you don't have power as a country, you may have interests, but you don't have power, you can't pursue your interests in a certain way. America is pursuing its own interests. This is beyond whether Maduro is bad or Maduro is good. Maduro is an authoritarian or whether he's not an authoritarian. That's not what it's about. It's about American interests as a superpower. America is competing with Russia and China for global influence. There are other actors. And America is taking out its own sphere of influence. It has returned to the 1823 Monroe Doctrine, the idea that this is our backyard and we are going to control things here. That is what is playing out there. Guyana is on the periphery of that, as far as America is concerned. Yet, given geography, given Venezuela's claim to Guyana's land, given America's economic interest in Guyana, it's also about Guyana. But Guyana does not have the military capacity to protect its own interest. And that is where the difference is. America has the military, political, and economic wherewithal to protect and advance its interests. Guyana has interest. Migrants spilling over the border. Venezuela shooting up in Guyana if they feel that Guyana is encouraging America. Venezuela invading Guyana. So Guyana has interest. But Guyana doesn't have the capacity, the wherewithal to protect and advance its interests. That is the fundamental difference between a country like the United States of America that won its independence by the gun in 1776, when they threw the British out and declared their independence on July 4th, 1776, got their independence by the gun. They're a particular kind of society. Guyana did not win its independence by the gun. Guyana won its independence through negotiation with the British and struggle against slavery and colonialism. Two different types of society. One could protect and advance its interests. The other one cannot protect or advance its interests. And so the questions being raised have to be different. If I were meeting with Rubio today, and I were the Guyana president, I would be meeting with Rubio to talk about how Guyana can be guaranteed its safety in a hostile neighborhood. Our country, our government is too compromised. Our government is too compromised to represent the interest of Guyana and Guyana's place in this hostile neighborhood. Our government is too compromised. Our government is thinking about its own domestic survival and not the survival of the nation. Our government is too deep in corruption. And so the government leaders may be vulnerable to US approach to international relations. And so they are not capable of representing our interests and protecting our interests. Antigua and Barbuda said to the Americans, you can't put no radar in our country. But they say to America, you can bring third-party refugee here. Hard talk on one hand and soft talk on the other hand. I don't envy Gaston Browne. When you are a little country like Antigua and Barbuda, you talk up with one side of your mouth and you genuflect with the next side. That is the reality of small countries, small states. And that is why I said last night, Guyana must take a neutral position, a neutrality that is grounded in our inability to force our way. Not a neutrality, by the way, that is grounded in a slavish attitude to any of the actors, but a neutrality nevertheless. We would be foolish if we are deciding this is the time to champion small countries not being vulnerable to big countries coming in and running their government. Those are noble ideals. We must still stand for those ideals. But we can't be in the front row advancing those ideals at this moment. And that's clearly where we are. And it has to be a real politic approach. Our country, our government seems to be taking a side. And I'm in agreement with our country if they don't want to offend America. I wouldn't say that we offend America. I'm with the Ali government on that. But if at the same time you're going to offend the Venezuelans, I'm not with you on that. You cannot offend either the Americans or the Venezuelans. Because you are susceptible. You are vulnerable to blowback from both countries. Nobody knows what Venezuela will do if there's another landing of troops there. Nobody knows what they will do. They're not going to expect it. And they may decide that they're not going to fight America. They're going to fight Guyana. Well, not fight Guyana, but blow up Guyana. Our people, countrymen and women, we have to know our country, know our country's history, know our country's place in the world. Sometimes we understand that we get caught up with our own internal politics and don't understand what's happening in the rest of the world. And when we have a government that is more concerned with its survival rather than the nation, then we find ourselves in the mess that we have found ourselves in. Guyana, take stock of yourself. Take stock of yourself. The simplistic nonsense I hear from people who ought to know better. Who ought to know better. The Guyana government is in talks with the Americans about taking third-party migrants. How is Guyana government going to say no to the Americans? After seeing what America just do to Maduro, well, how is the Guyana government going to say no? How is Antigua government going to say no? How is the Kittian government will say no? It's a fait accompli. They have to say yes to protect themselves. Consequences of being a small state with no leverage. Consequences of being a small state with no leverage. You think the Guyana government can tell the Americans, no, we're not taking them? No, they can't do that. They have to take them. And America is satisfying its own interests. And when all of that is over, where does Guyana stand? We already have problems with immigrants who came from Africa, and immigrants who were here before, and immigrants who came from Madeira and India and China. We already have problems with those immigrants. And now we are taking in more immigrants. We have not learned to live together in a settled way as a country of immigrants. But now we are taking in more immigrants. Now we have to take them in because you can't tell the Americans no. America is satisfying its interests. Guyana is compounding in the process of living nice with the Americans, as we must. We are adding to problems in our country. That is the nature of international relations and international politics. That's where we find ourselves. Did the Guyana government say, boy, this is a big one. We in trouble, we can't tell the Americans no. But at least let the country own the decision. So, Mr. Rubio, give me a couple of days and a couple of weeks. Pick up the phone. Aubrey Norton, bye, I know that you didn't shake me hand, but this is a biggie. Can we meet on this issue? Azadin, I know I want to throw you away in jail in America, but this is a big one. We got to meet on this issue. And whoever else they call. And come up with a national approach to this issue. Because it's a big issue. Under normal circumstances, the guy in the government should say no. St. Kitts should say no. Antigua should say no, but they don't have no leverage to say no. But at least the Guyana government should call in the rest of the officialdom and say, let me try to own this thing together. Let me try to at least take a national position. At least say, we taking this thing, we saying yes under duress. But when you don't have a culture of working together, you then end up with a mess that we're in. This is a messy country. And the mess seeps right down to the bottom. Right down to the bottom. Everybody hustling somebody in this country. Families are torn apart over quarrel, over petty things. And we say that this is a developed country. Guyana is the fastest growing economy in the world. Tell that to Rubio and Trump, that we are not taking third-party immigrants because we are the fastest growing economy in the world. Tell that to them. You tell that to Guyanese people to fool them. Tell that to Trump and Rubio, that you're the fastest growing economy in the world. Tell them how much bridge you build. Tell them how much road you think. And because of that, you're not taking third-party immigrants. You're fooling your people. And in the end, you end up fooling yourself, Mr. Government, Mr. PPP. Fooling your people. And some of our people have fallen for it. Some of our people have fallen for it. Some of our young people stand by the wayside and talk about progress, progress. You know what is progress? It's going to be a rough time in the coming days and weeks and months. All we can do is try to talk to our people and to mobilize our people to understand the limitations of their own country and their own government, and to understand that we're in trouble. Budget is coming. Spending, because budget is about spending. How much you expect and how much you expect to spend, how much you expect for taking, how much you expect to spend. And your spending priorities have to be consistent with the situation in your country. Is it a budget that is anticipating mass migration from Venezuela? Is it a budget that speaks to 58% poverty? Is it a budget that speaks to the madness in the minds and the heads of our people who are carrying on the roadways and the byways? Is it a budget that speaks to the consequences of more roads, more car, faster driving, more road accidents? Is it a budget that speaks to that? We shall see. We shall see. We shall see. We come in peace. We go in peace. We are not going to lie down and die. Something that is not going to be coming from our side. We're going to fight. We're going to fight as we must. They don't want us to fight. They want us to be victims of their circumstances. But we're going to fight. We're going to fight. Love is the watchword, because we got to love each other. And we got to understand that we're in this together. All of us. And that in the end, the fight will not liberate some of us. For the fight to mean anything, it must liberate all of us. See you all tomorrow.